So it is currently midnight and I've been working on the bus all day long. I also left my laptop out there, but it's cold, so I'm just going to shoot this on my phone. It seemed like my last video really resonated with a lot of people, and so I, through taking a quick look at the comments, saw one by Chris Bauer. This is a shout out to you, asking about purpose as opposed to passion, which was the last conversation. The only downside is I don't know if I can give you the answer if you don't have your purpose, how to find it, but I can kind of tell you how I did it personally, and maybe that can help you. When I was back in college, I was in my second year. My second year? I think it was my second. Yeah, it was my second year. And I had a traumatic event that happened that sort of kickstarted all of this stuff. I was 19 at the time. And my mother, who had been sick for several years at this point, she had been given a few months to live, and she had been kicking it to 2 or 3. And granted, it was, more life, but she was slowly losing the ability to recognize people, which was really hard. My little brother, he was 11. She was deteriorating fast and had like a purse that she'd carry around, which was processing the bile that was coming out. It was a very difficult situation. And so she ended up dying when I was in college in my second year. And I think that was the first time that I realized life was happening. And prior to that, I was waiting for it to happen, but it just turned out it was happening. I just wasn't aware. And so all at once, I purchased my first motorcycle. I stopped cutting my hair. I stopped dating my then girlfriend of several years. It was more traditional. And then I started my first company, which was a nonprofit. I believe it still runs at the university. It was about triple bottom lining, or business, like sustainable business. And I had sort of stumbled onto this path, which I was really passionate about, because I had the opportunity to sort of just like glance a piece of it by working at the Port of Los Angeles. I was doing the amping procedures, which was cool. Not that anyone needs to know what that is, but amping procedures are when ships come into ports. They're extremely non-sustainable. Like the generators on those things are disgusting. The particulates are huge. So I was leading one of the efforts to make the port more environmentally friendly, which meant connecting this cruise ship to shore power with a giant electrical cord that would not just, you'd shut off the power on the boat and then turn it on the shore. You would slowly power down from the boat and slowly power up from the shore. And if you got it wrong, it would explode. So I had to work with electrical mechanics and the wharfingers and the architects and everybody. It was awesome. It was an amazing position. What was interesting is that, well, if you ask my family, I couldn't have asked for a better situation because I had my foot in the door with government, pretty good government clearance, full benefits, and I'm like, 19. It was a pretty good deal, and they loved me there. It was fun, but it wasn't fulfilling. And I was observing that if I was getting all of those things and it still wasn't fulfilling, then probably it wouldn't be for me. And I was the only one that felt like that. Everyone else around me at the time was like, this is you're stupid for thinking this way. The point of saying all that is because I discovered during that time, which I was never able to relay to my mom really, that I loved the notion of being able to make a place no worse than you find it. And I think that notion is overlooked by most of the business world. And it's easy to. do that. I understand, but it shouldn't be that way. And so I immediately pivoted to, okay, environmental studies. I think I want to do this stuff. And that's where that nonprofit came to be. And just by seeing this glance, but also, even though I was working on those very cool environmental things here at the port, I really wanted to shake things up and do it somewhere where it would make more of an impact. And that's what brought me over to China. And I ended up doing developments for it was people with money in China, guys that I went to college with that were just like insanely wealthy, either because they were government kids or big business kids, like big business, just silly money. And so I'd talk to them, get them to put down big investments. This is after my nonprofit, which I had started like several companies and most of them failed. But this one was working. This one was working very well. And we were making a lot of money. I'd get the investors, I'd forward them over to my guys who had all the licenses and knew what to do. And then we'd do these massive developments. In my last year, I think I raised like almost 4.5 million off just a handful of investors. It was cool. However, it was also not fulfilling. Although it wasn't unfulfilling enough for me to be like kicked into the right direction. It took my business partners there in China rug pulling me. I was paying for most of the bills, but they had access to all the accounts and everything was in Chinese, so the stuff I was signing I didn't really know. And they took the company from me. Just poof, gone. And I lost about $360,000. Both my cars. Well, I had 3 cars at the time. Gone. Poof. All that stuff. It was just gone. And when I look back on it, though, which kind of was similar at the time to how I felt, I was like, well, my family's on my dad's side is all lawyers and doctors, and they were ready to start an international war, and just take them to court. And I decided that if I was going to do something like that, it would be a pretty major investment of time, when maybe out of it, all it really could have been is just confirmation that I'm not on the path I should be on. So kind of a cool thing to be able to, like, maybe not the most desirable way of being put on the path, but a way all the same. Pain, right? It influences a lot of things. And eventually I found myself traveling the world, which I've been nomadic most of my adult life since then. And even around then, when I was living in China, I guess you could count that as kind of nomadic. I was moving cities a lot for those 2 years that I was living there. But what's interesting is that was what got me onto the community path. And along that journey, which I sort of just like glazed through pretty quickly, but hopefully you can see the important beats there, I was identifying with the pain, the betrayal, the challenges. Like, I was really trying to soak these things in. And I wasn't furious at the betrayal part. It was actually, it seemed like a blessing in disguise. It was very difficult dealing with that, and filing bankruptcy and going through all of that stuff. But, you know, it wasn't the end of the world. And I think what I learned when I look back at this segment of my life is that my purpose came out of pain. I didn't choose the pain, but when it happened to me, it sort of kickstarted me on my path. And every time I faced more pain, it refined this path of purpose for me. And to this end, I guess maybe I should have done this at the beginning, but I would explain purpose as like the reason why you wake up, this North Star that you're driving towards. And I think I have a couple of them now. One of them is to change the way that the world does business. And the most significant way is to make it more fun in my mind. And the other one is to bring out I guess they're kind of related, but there's like a more detailed one there, which is to bring out the children within adults. I think that's really important too, because, as we all age, we look different and less cute, but still soft, gooey kids on the inside, right? Driven by the same basic emotions, for the most part. Anyways, this purpose that I have to reshape the way that the world does business, to be more relatable, more fun, more human, you could argue, it's not all that different than the one that I had in college, which was to make the world a little bit more better than you found it, or bring more environmentalism to corporate environments, right? And so it maybe has changed its faces, but it's never really changed that much. So in retrospect, how do you find your purpose? Well, the way that I found it was by identifying with these pains, these traumatic things that happen over time, and being open to what they could teach me. And at the same time, really trying to imagine outside of the project what my larger vision or goal is. For example, I'm building that bus right now to hit all 50 states. And the goal of that one is to really bring about a level of connection that I don't think community has seen for a long time. And of course, school is that platform. So being able to make what is, in my opinion, the most human place on the internet become something that people can access IRL, in real life, that's a pretty big feat, especially in light of all this AI stuff. Because it's hard to know what to trust, what to follow. So you can tell that there's a sleepiness in my voice, but I hope somewhere in there I'm demonstrating to you how I found my purpose and how you might be able to as well. I hope that's helpful, and I hope you guys have a good night, if it's nighttime. If it's daytime, well, I hope when it becomes nighttime you have a good night. A good night. Anyways, all right, you beans. Have fun, make friends out there. I'm going to crash. I love you.